Hi, my name is Dave Schaefer. I think everyone's here. I'm chair of the finance department and professor of finance here at Villanova University. And I'd like to welcome you all to the 5th Interviewing on Wall Street panel presentation, followed directly after this, the 5th Fall Networking Reception. And I want to congratulate each one of you for taking the time to come to the event and for taking advantage of the opportunities that you may have when you are going through a Wall Street interview. I think we're fortunate to be here tonight because given the events of last September, which you probably remember, we had to cancel this event. So I didn't say this was the 5th annual event, this is the 5th event. We canceled. Last year was supposed to be the 5th event that we had to cancel. So I think we're fortunate here to have these distinguished panelists with us tonight. Although we haven't returned completely to normal yet, I think the fact that we're having this panel discussion means that Wall Street has an eye toward hiring, which I think is good news. And also, you're going to learn and hear firsthand how to ace and nail the Wall Street interview. And my advice to you tonight is listen to these professionals because they have a lot of experience. They've not only been to interviews, they've given lots of interviews. So this is a really helpful resource for you tonight. Today's program is brought to you by the combined efforts of the Clay Center here at VSB, University Career Services Office, the Villanova Equity Society, the Villanova Fixed Income Society, in collaboration with the Villanova Financial Club. And the Villanova Financial Club is a group of alums who share the common bonds of their alma mater and an affiliation with the financial world. They give a lot of their time to helping you in your career success. This event was the brainchild of Financial Club members many years ago, and as a result of their energy, as a result of their generosity, this event was born. Before I introduce Bill Donnell, who's going to be introducing the panelists, I just want to make a couple of announcements. The first announcement I want to make is the fact, just to remind you, the networking reception follows this event directly. So as soon as this is over, we have the networking event. Number 2, you'll find that on every seat is a guide, Careers in Financial Markets. This is a really useful guide for helping you with some tips on how to land a job, how to interview. It tells you a lot about the different jobs on Wall Street. It tells you a lot about the Wall Street culture in the different areas that you can work on Wall Street. So this is a very useful resource. I recommend that you use it. So without further delay, I'd like to turn the program over to Bill Donnell. If you don't know Bill, Bill is the first vice president in the private banking and investment group at Merrill Lynch. He's a 1977 VSB graduate, and he's also a past president of the Villanova Financial Club. And Bill would like to share some thoughts with you, and he's going to introduce our distinguished panelists. So, Bill.
Thank you. We did do a program last year, a little bit different type of program. We're very happy to be here. Anybody here from up on this stage graduated from Villanova. We are all members of the Villanova Financial Club. But before I get started, let me just ask a question. Who was here last year? Just to kind of get an idea. Okay, about half. And if you're a freshman or a sophomore, let me see. Hand up. Okay. And juniors? Good. And then the rest are seniors. And then, Laura, you've been here all 4 years, right? Okay. Yeah, we are all from the Villanova Financial Club, which is a group of Villanova alums. We're 80 today. We started in 1982. Yes, we do a lot of social networking and a lot of programs, but a lot of what we do is we try to give back to Villanova. Somebody helped, or a group of people helped us make it in our careers, and we kind of feel it's our responsibility to give back a little bit to Villanova, and especially Villanova students. And we've probably networked in several hundred students into internships the last couple of years and interviews, and we're very happy to do it. Things have been a little bit, let's put it this way, it was a little bit of change last year. But it doesn't change the fact that Villanova is somewhere in the top 10 of employed universities on Wall Street. I think it's probably closer to 5 or 6. than it is to 10. There are probably 10 firms on Wall Street that have at least 50 or more Villanova alums. Credit Suisse is 150, Bank of America is 400, Morgan Stanley is 400. So there are a lot of Villanova alums on Wall Street. But things changed a little bit last year. Wall Street had a down year. It's not the first down year. Wall Street will come back again. There's been, if you look back over the last 30 or 40 years, there's been probably 8 or 9 periods like last year, though last year is probably the most severe. And when it comes back, it's going to come back a little bit differently. And one of the things that George and Bill are going to talk about today is the role of the small firms. This is something you need to embrace, you need to listen to, because it's going to be a little bit different game it's a different game today, the next 3 or 4 years. But enough for that. Let me just introduce our panelists, and I'll turn it over to them. George Coleman will be the first speaker. George graduated at the same time as I did. George is a 78 VSB graduate. He's an accounting major. And he started at Integrated Resources, a small tax shelter firm, before joining Credit Suisse in 1986. And George grew vertically in the firm, has been there since '86. Today he runs for the Americas all of equity sales and trading, has a lot of people work for him. He's a managing director. He's also on the equity board at Credit Suisse. George is going to be talking about some of the dynamics that have changed on Wall Street, but more specifically, George is going to be talking about interviewing in a large firm. Okay? Credit Suisse, Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, to give you a few examples. Following George will be Bill Parry. Bill Parry graduated in '82. He was an accounting major. And Bill Parry started out his career in accounting before coming to Wall Street. He's worked at UBS, JP Morgan, Salomon Brothers. His last assignment before this was he was a managing director in charge of all of high-grade fixed income sales at Bank of America Securities. And now he is a managing director at Broadpoint Gleacher, which is probably one of the emerging powers on Wall Street. And he's going to be talking about, and this is a new concept, we didn't talk about this the last 5 years, is interviewing in a smaller firm, networking, how do you get in, what the cycle is all about, and you really need to embrace what he's going to talk about. Finally, Matt Baldwin, you may have seen him before, but he sat in your chair 3 years ago. He graduated in 2006. He interned at Raymond James, went through the analyst program at Bank of America, and then got hired right out of that program at Bank of America Securities into FX, which is currency trading. He is now an associate with Bank of America in the FX department. And Matt is going to be talking about how to be successful in your internship, your analyst program, your first year, preparing for the interview, tying a lot of the things that Bill and George are talking about, tying them all together. So without further ado, what I'd like to do is turn the program over to George Coleman.
So this is the 5th or the 6th? It's the 6th,
it's
right?
It's the 6th, okay. But the 5th in this format.
Okay, because I'm here to tell you, I'm here to deliver good news. A year ago we had to cancel this because of the 100-year flood and Lehman Brothers going bankrupt. But when I say good news, the first time we did this, it was standing room only in here. So the contrarian in me tells me, you're all going to get jobs. Because, 6 years ago, markets raging, 5 years ago, markets raging, it's on the newspaper, everybody wants in. And so the people who really want in are here tonight. So congratulate you for coming and showing the initiative to come, because it tells me deep down inside you're taking this very seriously compared to other people. So in the vein of good news, I'm here to tell you that things are better. Things are a lot better. Credit Suisse, and I think representative of all firms, we're making a lot of money. The department I run, the best year we ever had was in 2007, and the revenues in the department were $7 billion globally. Last year, they were 3.1. This year, if I were going to project where we might wind up, it's going to be 6.7. Now, with all the stuff you read in the newspaper and all the negativity in the world, et cetera, you would think that, you know, things are like last year when we only generated $3 billion in revenue, when it feels like we're going to probably generate as much as almost as much as we ever did before. So with that, I want you to walk out of here today with a lot of confidence. I want you to walk out of here today calling your parents if you're a senior and tell them that you expect to be off the payroll by September, because they'll be thrilled. Now, I have children that have graduated from here a year and a half ago that are still on the payroll, but that's another story. Some of you know them, or her. Now, the bad news is if you go look at the top, it says U.S. securities class. This is the target for Credit Suisse. So last year, the reason that no one could get a job is that we went from hiring 97 people in securities, which if you don't know what that is, that's equities and fixed income together, and that would include like sales, trading, research, etc. And so this year, you know, we're up 89%. We're going to hire 70 people, but it's not as many people as we were hiring in 2007, 2008. And then away from that, you can see that the other parts of the firm that support the securities division, which is, you know, those bigger numbers, you can kind of see that the class size is expanding pretty dramatically. And, you know, what are those other things? And what Billy kind of said to you before in the program that we did last year, you need to kind of think more broadly. You need to think more generally. Now, how many people here have walked in here today thinking you want to be an institutional salesman, or don't even know what it is? How many people walked in here thinking you wanted to be a trader or a research analyst? And let me assure you, when I was in your seat, I had no clue, zero. You know, and so the idea that you come in here and someone says, well, show this guy's older brother's an institutional salesman, so I guess I want to be that, or this guy's a trader, so I guess I want to be a trader. You know, if you can see up here, we're going to hire 70 people who are going to be salesmen, traders, etc. But we're going to hire 339 people who do everything else. You know, and so my advice to you is to broaden your mind and think about not just sales and trading, but what is everything else? What is everything else? You know, it's legal and compliance. In compliance, you do not have to have a law degree. A degree from the business school as good as Villanova, there'll be plenty for you to do. There's product control, where if you have an accounting degree, there's lots of opportunities. There's in the whole facilities, like managing how we run the place, the actual buildings itself, etc. So there's and then of course there's IT, and IT drives much of what happens on Wall Street. Now that's probably more for people who have more like engineering kind of backgrounds, etc. And maybe there's people in here who have engineering degrees or are going to have engineering degrees. But my message is that things are better. We're hiring more people. And you need to broaden your horizon just beyond just being sales and trading. And then I don't want to steal, my assistant put them in the wrong order. And I know you can't see this, but Brenda said that each of you will get a copy of this presentation. So I put in here, this is about 400 broker-dealers that are people that in essence Credit Suisse competes against, but they're smaller firms. There's a couple of big ones in there, but they're smaller firms. This is not to bore you with the whole thing, but this is a list of firms that outsource their execution to Credit Suisse. We have this very complicated algorithmic trading program that we, in essence, lease out to other firms. So, so if you go to work at one of these places, you're probably not going to be a trader because they outsource that to us. But you should Google all these names. You should, if you want to be a research analyst, this is a tremendous place to start. I don't want to steal your thunder, but if you want to break into the business and you want to be a salesman, you want to be a research analyst, and potentially a trader, and Billy can give you more detail. I figured, it's a little bit of a needle in a haystack to find the names, so I figured I'd just give them to you. Now, when it comes to interviewing, and that's how this whole thing started, was, how do we help you guys think about how to prepare for an interview? And there's a two-part process. The first part is on campus here, or if for some reason a firm is not interviewing on campus here, but through your networking capabilities you're able to get an interview in New York City, in essence, it's the round one interview. And step two is getting past that first round to get invited back to what's called Super Day. And Super Day is, you know, we bring in, I don't know, 30 students who have passed the first round. They're grouped into groups of 5. And in essence, you're competing against those other 4 people for a spot in the actual training program. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as I go through this. So, you know, you have a 30-minute slot. And what I'm going to kind of break it down for you is how to kind of think about those 30 minutes. There's 5 core competencies, and you have to have a view, and you have to be prepared. Now, how many of you were in middle school or in high school or even here at Villanova, and you took a final and you aced it? Like, you know, you had an hour and a half to take it, and you were done in 45 minutes. Everyone who's ever had that feeling, raise your hand. Okay? I want you to have the same prep. That happened because you over-prepared. Now, maybe you are the smartest person in the room, and unlike Billy and I, or 2 Billies, you know, we were never the smartest person in the room, and the few times we had that feeling was because we were over-prepared. So, you've got 30 minutes, and, you know, what's going to happen is, you know, you're going to walk in, you're going to sit down, etc., you know, and the person who's interviewing you is going to try to break the ice. And what they're going to do is they're going to find something that you have in common with them. It might be golf, it might be Relay for Life, it might be that you went to the same Catholic high school, it might be a Jesuit thing, I don't know what it's going to be. But they're going to find something that you can kind of connect with. Then they're going to spend the next 15 or 20 minutes going over, you know, the 5 core competencies, which I'm going to drill down on a little bit further now. And at the end of the interview, you know, you're going to have 3 to 5 minutes allocated for questions. So if you kind of think about this, you know, you've got a couple minutes at the beginning for breaking the ice. You've got 3 to 5 minutes at the end. So you really have to gear yourself in the preparation for, you really only have 20 minutes to convey that you are the person we want to hire. And you kind of have to think about that in advance and kind of think in advance, you know, what are you going to talk about? What is your message? So, Billy and I were in the same fraternity when we were here. We used to have this like file cabinet that was supposedly full of all the old finals and stuff. So we would kind of like, you know, we wouldn't call it cheating, but we would call it extra preparation, you know. And so in that spirit, I'm giving you the form that the evaluator is going to fill out when you walk out of the room. So in terms of your preparation, I would suggest you kind of take a good look at this form. It's really kind of basic. It's not that big a deal. All right, so the first core competency is intellectual skills. Now, what does that mean? You know, I'm not going to read all this to you. These are kind of questions that I would anticipate, you should anticipate being asked. But let me be really clear. All the freshmen, raise your hand. Grades matter. Go to class. Do your assignments. The seniors, it's too bad. You know, it's over. Either you did it or you didn't do it. You know, and so it's grades matter. They're going to ask you what your SATs were. And don't make believe you can't remember. I'm 53 years old. I can tell you exactly what mine were. Not so good, but I can tell you what they were. So don't kind of make believe you don't know the answer, because, and you know, and if they're not good, it is what it is. And if your grades are just not what you think that they should be, you know, don't be afraid to find a way to convey to somebody that you think that you're very bright, notwithstanding the fact that, you know, maybe you're someone who doesn't take great tests well. And one example that I'd give you is, somehow or another I wound up on a super day talking to a young man who had gone to Syracuse University. And, you know, he had good grades, but not the best of grades. And I was kind of challenging him on this issue of, you know, had he maximized his potential? And, you know, was he, I don't think I asked him if he was bright enough to work there, but that was kind of what I had in mind. And so he tells me a story about, you know, I guess in upstate New York there's a lot of Indian reservations, and so there's gambling there. And he's telling me the story about how he went on the Indian reservation and entered a Texas Hold'em tournament and won it and won $10,000. Well, I can tell you, I hired him, and now he works for me, and he's a salesman in San Francisco, and this was only 3 years ago. So my point is that there's lots of ways to convey that you think you're bright. There's lots of ways to convey that you think that you know, think on your feet. And, you know, if everybody in the world who, you know, got a 3.8 was rich, you know, then, you know, it doesn't work that way, because I can tell you when I look around my floor and my associates, etc., not everybody got a 3.8. For those of you who got 3.8, I congratulate you, and it doesn't mean that's a negative, but I'm just trying to convey to you that it's broader than that. Interpersonal skills and communication, what we're driving at there is teamwork. And this is the moment where you have to kind of convey that you work well with others, that you guys have lots of projects where you have to kind of work together as a team. Hopefully you're the team leader and you can talk about times where you were the team leader. Were you the captain of your team in high school, here at Villanova, on an athletic, if you're an athlete? Relay for Life, I don't know how big that is. I know you guys have Special Olympics. There's lots of opportunities for leadership. So at the end of the day, what this core competency is about, it's about leadership, and it's about teamwork. And then motivation and work skills, what we're kind of, obviously what we're kind of looking for is, do you want to work hard? Are you somebody that, has a sense of entitlement? It's a big, big problem. Big, big problem of people who come in and think that for some reason that, so-and-so, or, I had a woman this summer who goes to Georgetown, and very fortunate for her that she had a very successful father. And all she did all summer was tell everybody how successful her father was. And guess what? She didn't get a job because people didn't believe that she wanted to work hard. And this is an area where another thing that we're looking for is your ability to overcome adversity. And adversity, comes in a lot of different ways. And I was driving down here today, and I was trying to think of a story that I could tell you that kind of like resonated well with me. And I was interviewing this young man, I don't know, 3 years ago or so. And he went to Penn. Was a pretty good student, not the best student. And his father was the CEO of a big company, big Fortune 500 company. And everybody kind of knows who his father is, and he's got the same name, so it's kind of like, I really feel bad for the guy, because everyone says, okay, who's this kind of spoiled little rich kid who's only getting an interview because his father's blah, blah, blah. And I really wanted to try to figure out whether this kid would be, would I want to work with him? So I'm thinking to myself, like, what kind of adversity could he have ever had in his life? So I challenged him on, hey, you've probably, every vacation in your life, been on a private jet. And he said, yep, that's true. Been on a lot of private jets. Now, most of us in this room have never been on one. And I'm saying, like, how are you going to fit in here? How are you going to work well with everybody? And how to talk about adversity in your life? And he gave the best answer, and that's why he works with us. Did I do something wrong? And his answer was that his father in his life had worked in Chicago, New York, London, Tokyo, and Seoul, Korea. And he had to change schools every 2 years and be the new kid. And as a result, you have to come in and, in essence, establish yourself, friendships, et cetera, et cetera. And so, would you like me to stop?
No, go ahead.
Okay, no, I'm relaxed, But the point is that, people of privilege, like this young man, as I said, people wouldn't think he would have adversity in his life, but in fact he had, and he'd overcome it. And let me tell you, he's a tremendous employee. The next competency, it's a good thing I kept my notes here, is problem-solving skills. This is problem-solving is, and how many of you ever heard of this section called brain teasers? That resonate with anybody? I tell you, if I was in your seat, it would scare me. Don't let it scare you. You don't have to answer the question correctly. It's all this kind of stuff. Like, I remember like being in junior and high school, we called it trigonometry. You guys probably called it something else. The train leaves Philadelphia at 1 o'clock and leaves New York at 1:30, and one's going 30 miles an hour and all this other stuff. And when do they meet? And they kind of, what you need to do when they ask you these questions is take a deep breath, take your time, and talk about your process. Talk about how you're thinking about how you want to answer the question. The other tip I'll give you is this young man who works for me, who's a Villanova grad, my daughter Casey's class 2 years ago, and he went online and Googled brain teaser or Amazon or something and actually found a book that had a bunch of these in them so he could actually practice. I don't know if it actually, you know, I've never seen the book, but it's something to think about. And then lastly, the final core competency is alignment with Credit Suisse's values, or Morgan Stanley's values, or Goldman Sachs's values. Be prepared. You better know who the CEO of the firm is. Not hard to find out. You better read their mission statement. The mission statement is going to be on every single homepage of every large corporation or every large investment bank. And understand that each bank has a different strategy. Goldman Sachs has a very different strategy than Credit Suisse. Goldman Sachs' strategy is kind of more like a prop shop, whereas Credit Suisse's strategy is much more client-focused. And all you have to do is read the homepage and you can kind of figure that out, just for example. All right, so in terms of being prepared for the interview, what I suggest you do is you have to have a view. And so does everybody here have a view on interest rates? Someone give me a view. Like, where are they now? 0, right? Where are they going? Can they go less than 0? Well, I guess they can if you believe in quantitative easing, but have a view on interest rates. My personal view is recession's over. My personal view is that we're coming out of this recession. My personal view is that housing is bottomed. There's lots of data points out there that can, in essence, back up my view. I could be wrong, but we would like to have an intellectual debate with you about those things. Have a view on the geopolitical situation. Know what's going on in Afghanistan. Know what's happening today in Pittsburgh. There we go. I mean, can you imagine if I asked you that and you didn't know? I'm telling you, it's over. Like I will shut down and think that you're an idiot because the Wall Street Journal is available here and it's free. And if you don't know that the G20 is going on in Pittsburgh, it tells us that you're really not serious. I don't have my slides, so this doesn't work as well. So usually what I put up here is 3 dates. It's October 2nd, November 6th, and December 4th. What do those 3 days have in common? Kind of hard. The first Friday of every month. And what happens on the first Friday of every month? Now you've been here 4 times. You should know the answer. The single most important economic number gets released, the unemployment numbers. And when people are not working, we're in recession because they don't have a job and they can't spend any money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And when they are working, that's what everybody's looking for. It's a lagging indicator, but it drives the market. And so things like that you need to kind of think about. I mean, like my first, 12 or 13 years of Credit Suisse, I was a producer. I actually sat at the desk and traded stocks. And I never, ever, 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 ever took that day off, that week. Like if I was taking a week's vacation, it was never that week because it was the most important week of the month. And the last thing I'd leave you with is that, I say this a lot, in your preparation, every time I walk in Bartley, I'm astonished at the pile of Wall Street journals are sitting there that nobody's read. Pick it up. You don't have to read the whole thing. It's like, pick it up, take section C out, and read the following section. The rest of the market, heard on the street, and the credit markets. If you just read those 3 things every day, you will get a sense of what's going on in the markets. They kind of write it in such a way that it's like a story, and they connect the dot day after day after day, so you can get continuity of thought. And so, in closing, I would tell you that things are better. The worst is over. You're all going to get jobs, and you're going to get good jobs because you go to a great school, and you should be proud of going here. And so, with that, I wish you good luck, and good luck.
Well, good afternoon. It's nice to be back in front of a good crowd. Last year, I sat up here. I'd only been at Broadpoint for less than a month, and just to do a little question: how many people in this room have ever heard of Broadpoint before? Well, I'd say 15 months ago, I never heard of it. We're only a firm that's been in creation for about 18 months. And I think, just before we get into the opportunities of what it's like to work for a small firm and the opportunities and how to find jobs in small firms, I thought it would be just important to get a little historical context of where we are on Wall Street and why a firm like Broadpoint exists today. The events of 2007, 2008, the financial crisis seized up Wall Street, seized up financial firms. We saw a tremendous amount of stress on Wall Street. We saw a fair amount of firms' demise. We lost Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns. We saw a tremendous amount of mergers, created Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, etc. And we saw a lot of talent in those firms, which were bulge bracket firms, without jobs. And the creation of small firms like Broadpoint were really born out of an opportunity that occurred as a result of the stress of the last 2 years. So we were created because we had a lot of talent finally coming out of bulge bracket firms with expertise, client relationships, product knowledge, and we saw the opportunity. We wound up hiring a lot of talented, experienced people, not only at Broadpoint, but as George showed on his thing, we've had probably a creation of about 70 new firms that did not exist 18 months ago. And this is very much like the old Wall Street. When I started sitting in the seat, when I started in Wall Street in the late 1980s, we probably had 20, 30 firms. We had mid-major firms that you've never heard of. Great firms like Payne Weber, Smith Barney, Donaldson, Lufkin, and Gin Redd, Peter Peabody, Dylan Reed. And all throughout the 1990s, we saw a lot of consolidation. Some of the big bulge bracket firms, bought, merged with these companies, and those names fell apart. So we wound up seeing a tremendous amount of firms get bigger and bigger due to the demands of capital, which was, more capital was needed to run our businesses, so therefore we forced more and more firms to bigger places. That all changed last year. And now most of the small firms were born out of opportunity. We're going to see the next phase, we're going to see some of those mid-major firms. And we call them small firms today. And we at Broadpoint now see an opportunity. 18 months ago, we thought we'd be a niche firm, a fixed income firm. We've seen now that the opportunity that is there to become a mid-major firm. And just to give you some sense of kind of the revenues and the people, having heard George talk, just to give you a little sense of, of Broadpoint, which is kind of a mirror to some of the other firms. About a year ago, we had 100 million in revenues. George's firm, George's equity, just the equity side of his firm, had 7.1 billion. We went in a year from 100 million in revenues to 500 million in revenues, and we're projecting, to this time next year to be $1 billion. Also, we went from 60 people a year ago to now we're at 300 people, and we expect that number to double also by next year. As a public company, a year ago we were trading with a market cap of 100 million. Today our market cap is $1 billion. So not only are we growing our revenues, but the recognition and the opportunity we think is a great one, which is also a sign of the healing that George and Bill mentioned there. This creates a great opportunity for you that didn't exist a couple of years ago. And one of the things I'd like to leave with you today, and particularly the freshmen, sophomore, and juniors who are coming up, is to put this on your screen as an option. Working at small firms now is going to be an opportunity for you, and something to also compare with working what I would call a major or bulge bracket firm. And I'd like to, in a few minutes, I'll say what the difference is in day-to-day working between different firms are. And they also, very much so, are very different processes for interviewing and researching and getting a job at these firms, and one that is very well suited for Villanova grads. There is no question from your seat, you should be very excited that Villanova alumni, the Villanova name is very well known in the small firm community. you have as good a shot, how do you say, a privileged shot of other firms to get a job in a small firm. And I think we'll go through more in detail as to why that is and how you do it effectively. So what is the opportunity? Well, small firms, you know, over the next year, what we've seen a creation of too many almost. I mean, the opportunity set, what we've done is we've made the bigger firms get back on the ball again. They've, you know, they're back on, they're looking to hire, they've gotten better at what they do, they're getting closer to their clients, their eye is now not on, you know, being a defensive nature, they're becoming offensive today. So one of the great things about having small dynamic firms with a lot of talent is it's going to make the big firms better. And I think that's going to be, you know, continue to lead to a healthier and more dynamic Wall Street in the years ahead. So that's why I'd say one of the very important things why the small firms is so important. But what we are going to see over the next year is we're going to see what I call the thrivers, which is the firms that are going to become small, become mid-majors, or who are going to become, you know, revenues that are going to double and triple and become, you know, a bracket below the bulge bracket firms. And that's going to cause consolidation. We're going to see, we are going to be one of the consolidators at Broadpoint. We're going to look to get into the equity business. We're looking to get into the emerging market business. So you know, that growth story is going to feed into hiring needs. More so for experienced people, but as we grow in people, we need assistants. We need sales traders, sales assistants, we need trading assistants, we need back office help. And that is not something you're going to see on your recruiting schedules, because, you know, we are lean and mean. We don't have HR departments. We're probably 2 years or 3 years away from having that type of formalized interviewing schedule, which is a great advantage for Villanova students, and we'll talk about taking advantage of it. So what's the difference? Let's talk about what the difference between working for, and I worked at B of A, and Matt was one of my interns at one point. So what's the difference between working at a small firm and a bulge bracket? And I thought a lot about this, and I think a bulge bracket firm have very formalized training programs where you basically last from 18 to 24 months. It consists of a 3 to 6 month formalized classroom training, which leads to a rotation into different groups. You know, you may rotate into a fixed income or an equity group. And then at the end of those 2 years, you're usually placed into a specific job where there you become an associate. So a very formalized, a great broad training program. Usually, you know, the classes you get to go through with, you know, 50 to 100 depending on your size firm, but they're pretty, with nuances between different firms, but pretty clear in terms of the way, the format of how it's done. The difference in a small firm is there are no training programs. It's more of a mentorship program. And it's, what I would say the difference is your experience is going to be more random. I mean, you have to do your work. You have to, it's going to be based upon the people in the firm. They're important, you know, how much they put in terms of emphasis on young people, some of the direct groups that you're going to be working with. Unlike a big firm where you're hired into a training class and not placed into a specific area when you come in small firms, you're going to be hired by the corporate bond department, the government bond department, the equity trading floor. So you're going to come in and have a specific group. And I think what I have found in young people, those experiences vary from tremendous, because you work for a very good person who has great mentoring skills, and that experience can lead to having you have more responsibility sooner in your career. On the other side of that coin, you can work for a firm where you wind up basically spending your 6 months going to get coffee, using, you know, copying things, and not. So in many ways, the responsibility is upon you to make sure that you do your due diligence, that you are an aggressive learner, because there isn't that formalized schedule. Now, I think just people have different preferences for that, and I think one of the great things to do, and I'm going to help all of you, and I'll spend a day down here and help you, you know, make contacts with these small firms, is go out and do informational interviews. And you just have to start now. That's where you use your alumni network. You call up someone, say, I'm going to be in New York on my, my winter break. Can I come by and spend, an hour of your time to just sit with you and see what you can do? That is so invaluable. You get an idea of what it's like to work in a small firm, and do it for 4 to 5 firms. You can do it in one day. We have 3 Villanova grads who work in my department, and I think spending a day with them will give you a really good experience of what that job's like, and see if it's something that really gathers to you. And then when you're doing that, I think obviously the opportunities, you're always looking for a job during those opportunities. While you're looking to try to do that, your eye is always to look for opportunities. Ask those questions. Are you guys looking to hire? Are you looking, is there opportunities here? The best thing about small firms is through the internship program. That's where we're going to, I will bet that of the hires that we do, we will probably generate 80% of those hires by hiring people on internships and turning them into full-time jobs. So sophomores and juniors, get on it now, because this is this next season. This is where you got to start doing your networking begins tomorrow. Researching them, fixed income, boutique, equity shops. I would encourage you to, begin to use Google, look at some of the, I have also a sheet with some of the names that George mentioned, and get familiar with it. Look when you see the Wall Street Journal, you're going to see these names come up a little bit more and more. But that informal information sessions are crucial. And unlike the formal interview process that you're used to coming on campus, use those as if you're being interviewed. After you do your informational interview, then you follow that up. You follow it up with a letter back saying we really enjoyed the experience. We think we've been following the firm. Very, I'm excited about the opportunities. I see you doing this and that. I'd like to see if you can pursue either an internship or a full-time job. I will tell you, at our firm, we're growing so quickly that when someone asks us for a job, say, you know what, we can use that person. We need people before we identify it. And I think that's going to be kind of the way this is going to work for probably the next 6 to 12 months. We're just too busy to get on the road to interview on campuses. So the difference, I would say, the big thing is this formalized training program versus this more, I would say, random experience, which is more hands-on, smaller group, possibility of getting more responsibility at an early thing. Pay at the early junior levels, where you'll be coming in, the pay is relatively very close in terms of the starting salaries. Also, salary plus bonus for starting, depending on your thing, is going to be somewhere between 55, 60,000 plus a bonus. So from that perspective, you'd be very similar. The one thing I would say that if you're lucky and have opportunities for both, I come from coming from a bulge bracket training program. I do think that they offer a broader experience because of those opportunities you see to go to various different departments. Is a really fantastic once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see different areas that you may not work in, but you develop relationships in that training program that are going to help you throughout your career, and you get a cursory knowledge of different things that are across the firm, different products. And I also think from a career perspective, it offers, bulge bracket firms may offer you a little bit more broader opportunities as to what you may do next in your career, whether it goes to to a private equity firm or buy side or hedge fund, wherever it does. On the boutique side, you have to work and network more for it. You have to take it upon yourself. And secondly, another avenue is going back to B school, which many 2-year analyst, whether it's an analyst program or training class, we see. I would say maybe 50% go back to B school, George. Maybe it's a little bit lower.
A little lower than that. And in the sales and trading department, probably not. In research and in banking, probably 80%.
Yeah, right. I would say that's correct. And I think, you know, that's educational portion of it is going to be more borne on you. Like I send, you know, some of the young people to the New York Institute of Finance and finance, you know, for educational classes in different areas of fixed income, but it's being done on their own, not through the firm. As we grow and get bigger, you know, that will probably change. So let's talk. What's the opportunities? Well, you've already heard from me that, you know, the growth is going to continue over the short term. We're going to need, you know, our primary hiring is experienced people, which over the last year and a half we were drawing out of the bulge bracket firms. You know, now they've learned, and they've got to, as they grow, they're going to need more people. So they're going to be, you know, hiring a lot of you and rely on their deep bench, which they grow their bench through their training programs. We don't have that luxury, so we have traditionally gone for experienced people. But like I said, as we grow exponentially, we need, you know, sales assistants and traders assistants, etc. So how do you find a job in a small firm? Well, that's where I think you in these seats at Villanova have a distinct advantage over every other school. You have a tremendous, loyal alumni network who I leaned on heavily for my job, and I think all of us have here. There is a proper way to do it. There is a organized fashion how you do it. And the first thing you need to do is, you know, you go through the Villanova directory, go through the, you know, use the Villanova Financial Club. You know, the internship program, I think, is one that, as you all know, is, I think, the most important component right now in getting a full-time job on Wall Street. When we look for full-time hires at a small firm, that experience, well, even though it's a short percent, it tells us that A, you're serious, and it also tells us that you've got, you know, some fabric to work with. So start early. Sophomore year, I think, is not too early to get a job on Wall Street. These firms, the small firms, there's 400 of them George put on, and I'm sure he missed about another 100. But it doesn't matter where you start. I just heard for the first time that Matt worked at Raymond James, and it's one of the boutiques. It's actually in the same building as we are. That is a great place to learn. And that will lead open doors to whether it's a boutique firm or a bulge bracket firm. But what you need to do is this is not going to be through the career, you know, the Career Center can help, but this is going to be a lot of work on your part to be able to identify the people in these firms who you want to do. A lot of letters, some calls as an interest, background information is some of the things that George mentioned that go the same with boutiques. I mean, it impresses me more when someone calls up and says, hey, I saw Broadpoint was a lead manager of maybe, you know, of the one bond deal that we're lead manager on. That would stand up to me, you know, dramatically. I would stand there and say, okay, this person's serious about, you know, working here. So, you know, that type of background information shows me that you've taken the time and that you really care about a job. Perseverance and persistence. We are busy, as I just told you. I mean, it may take the 5th phone call for me to call you back, or it may take the 4th email, or it may call 3 other people call me up and I say, the 3rd time I hear the same name, guess what? From someone from Villanova, have you talked to so-and-so? I'm going to call you back. And I think you'll find that the people here at Villanova who work on Wall Street, you know, no matter how busy they are, and maybe a day later, or maybe a week later, they're going to get back to you. But I think, you know, asking for an hour of their time for someone who may work for them is the right way to go. Followed up by a letter, giving them, you know, say, you know, 2 weeks to 4 weeks lead time to get in the office for an hour. Follow it up with a thank you and ask for whether there are what other opportunities there may be at that firm. And I actually availed myself to Brenda, and I will do what other people here from the club. I'll spend a day down here when it's mutually appropriate to help you go through look at your resume, help you with that cold call, help make contacts with some of these firms so I know who may be hiring. So I'll take my direction from the head of the equity and fixed income, and we'll make sure we get down 4 or 5 alum to help you guys. The interview process, as I said, it's less formal. You're not going to go through the formal interview process, but make no mistake, when you sit down and talk to 5 people on an equity desk, or the mortgage desk, or the trading desk, the fact that it may be a little bit more informal, it is still under interview. The same thing, the same type of questions, the same type of sharpness about the preparedness needs to come through. I think if there's one mistake I see, having been at a major firm and a small firm, is we see some people come through, and since it's not in the formality of a 40 minutes here, and it's more like, okay, I'm going to bring you over here to talk to him, they get informal. And they get comfortable, and they think that, oh, this is, we want you to be relaxed. Of course, we want to see through your personality. We want to hear about what you want to do, but you got to be on your game, and you got to make sure in that interview process that you get across those things that distinguishes you as the person we want to hire. And while it may not be formal, and we're not going to say hire, no hire at the end of that thing, you got to be thinking, I want this job, I want to go for that job. And identify what you can do. Because like I said in our firms, we'll have you in an informational interview and then realize that we have a place for you, even though we didn't have a specific identifiable job. Well, we may say to someone, you know what, we're going to have something in 3 months because we're going to hire this group of people. I'm hiring an emerging market group. I know I'm going to need a sales and a trading assistant. So next thing I know is I know you impressed me. It may be 2 months later, but the next thing I'll do is I'll keep your resume and say, time to call. Have them come in. So it's an exciting opportunity. As George said, Wall Street has rebounded, as we always do. We look where there's pain and suffering, there's opportunity. I think firms like Broadpoint, and there's numerous other ones who see the opportunities out there, who are going to be, have hiring needs over the next 6 to 12 months. And I think what I'd like to leave you with tonight is for you to think about that as an option. Get your curiosity as to get to know what working like in a small firm is on a personalized basis, and finally. Take advantage of my offer and the ones that take advantage of the Villanova Financial Club and some of the resources that we can be to help you get a job, because that's our sole purpose of coming down here is to give back to the university and to see each one of you get a job that you'll be happy to have. Look forward to talking to you shortly.
One of the things that I did was I always had an interest in the market. So if you don't actually have an interest, and I imagine you'll do because you're here, if you don't have an interest, it's not for you, because it's a very, very competitive, very, very fun place to work, and you'll get quickly weeded out if you just go in there and you think oh, it's fun. I know I have a cousin that worked on Wall Street and made a lot of money, so I want to go in there and do that. You actually have to have a real passion for it. Excuse me. So when you're just starting out, learn as much as you can. Read the Wall Street Journal every day. You guys have a Bloomberg terminal. Go on Bloomberg, especially if you're going to be going in and talking to someone. See what Broadpoint's last deals were. See what where Credit Suisse is in the league tables on equity M&A this year. So really you have to make a really concerted effort to go out there. Then when you're looking for those summer opportunities to go out, don't be afraid to reach out to your your networks. That's what I use my family's network, and I went and worked at Raymond James, and was happy to be I wasn't even an official intern on the mortgage trading desk, where I was basically just running tickets and getting coffee and doing that. But the important thing is go in there and show that you're eager to learn, and show that you're you're interested and that you want to learn more about what these people do and how you can help them, because that's your main job when you go in there. As somebody who is a young person, is you're trying to make the senior people's lives easier. And if you do a good job of that and you kind of get those two things together, you're most likely to get offered another, second position maybe the next year. That's what happened to me as well. I got offered a different position in the debt department at Raymond James, doing debt research on airline companies, which you had no clue what you were doing as a sophomore just graduated. But you go in, you ask a lot of questions, and you learn as much as you can. So you use those experiences kind of younger in your career to leverage going and interviewing for the bulge bracket firms, that if that's what you want to do. And that's when you do all the preparation that we just talked about. And you've really got to work hard for those, and you've really got to make yourself stand out. One thing at B of A Merrill Lynch, unfortunately, Villanova is not a target school. So you have to work that much harder and utilize all of your contacts to get your resume in front of people and get it in the door, because they do have non-target school, referral programs, which, a lot of, Villanova alumni we utilize, and that's how we get our people in, is through the back door. And sometimes that back door is starting in the back office or the middle office. So don't ever be afraid to take a back or a middle office position, because, I started in the back office and kind of doing some of the menial positions at Raymond James, and you work your way up. Then when you're an intern, work absolutely as hard as you can, and show that you have just such a genuine interest and passion, and that you're also intelligent. And you have to ask intelligent, pointed questions. You can't just go in and waste people's time and just ask like, oh, how long have you been here? But like, those things are great, but you've got to start to get a little bit more serious and ask them what their views are, and try and have a conversation, because that's what people will really remember. As well as remembering how people like their coffee. I still think, Bill, you like grande
vanilla latte. It's good, very good. And also about, and Matt was always the first in and last to leave. What's a first in, last out?
That's another very important thing for junior people, especially when you're an intern and when you're an analyst as well. And then I guess, moving on, let's say you do a great job on your internship and you get the full-time offer and you go into the analyst program. And if this was back in '06, everybody would want to work on the credit derivatives trading desk, because that's where all the money was being made, and that was the most fun place to work. I got some very good advice when I was going to the training program, and somebody said, find a desk where you fit with people's personality the most, and then don't chase a sexy product, because whatever's a sexy product 1 year will probably blow up in 3 years. And you've seen that time and time again on Wall Street. And it was some of the best advice, because people are like, you're going into foreign exchange, isn't that an old and mature market? It's not very much fun. Well, our revenues went from 800 million when I first started to $1.5 billion last year. While a lot of other revenues shrank, ours, pretty much doubled. So don't be afraid to go into like a mature business, or even something that's coming up where like a desk or a company starting a commodities trading desk or something like that. Don't be afraid to do kind of a mature product. Don't just trade what's hot and sexy at the time. And I guess the other thing too is whenever you're dealing with anyone in the firms and you're coming in, be cordial to every person you meet, from people in HR to the analyst to the assistant to everyone, because one little bad piece it immediately gets back to you. Like, we had somebody who was an intern who was rude to one of the secretaries, and that quickly got back to everybody on the desk, and that person definitely didn't get an offer. So it's little common courtesy things that that really do go a long way as well in the business. Anything else, Steve?